We have Mr. Chidambaram who's joining us now live from New Delhi. We're just going to try and get him patched through. We do. All right. Mr. Chidambaram, this is Faye D'souza from the Mirror Now studios. Good evening and thank you for your time.
Yes.
You have, we understand, taken a close look at the budget speech that's been presented today. I want to understand, first of all, off the bat, what is your view of the budget? Do you believe that the target of $3 trillion as an economy for this year and $5 trillion over the course of time is an achievable target?
I mean, don't make a song and dance about this 5 trillion. Please understand that if an economy grows at a nominal rate of 11% or 12% that they have assumed now, the economy will double in 6 years. Every moneylender knows this, every borrower knows this. 12% at 6 years will double. So whoever is in government, if the economy grows at 11 to 12%, the economy will double. So what's this big thing about a $5 trillion economy? 6 years from that date, it'll become a $10 trillion economy.
Mr. Chidambaram, there was a departure from the normal budget speeches in the sense that there was there were hardly any details about the allocation to specific schemes, the allocation to specific ministries. What is your reaction to the fact that there has been a departure this time, and most of those allocations required a fair amount of digging through the finance bill to find that number?
I'm shocked. And I said this at my press conference. This is an opaque budget speech. A budget speech is not meant for MPs alone, nor for officers, nor for stakeholders of the corporate sector or the capital market. They have their own in-house economists who can dig through the budget papers and find the numbers. A budget speech is for the country at large. The guy who's tuning into his radio or television and wanting to know what the finance ministers allocated to scheduled castes, what the finance ministers allocated for the welfare of women and children, what is the allocation for the midday meal scheme. And I'm totally surprised why the finance minister shied away from disclosing at least the major allocations for which people are expecting to know what has been allocated. I'm shocked.
Mr. Chidambaram, let's also consider the major problems we entered this budget with. There is a job crisis, there is a farm crisis, our consumer demand is slowing and GDP growth has slowed. Do you see any of the the reforms or any of the programs that have been announced as in this budget as solutions to these problems?
There's nothing in the budget speech about addressing the stress in the farm sector. Regarding stress sectors, there's some reference to the power sector. And there is a very irrelevant reference to the NBFC sector. But that's a different question, a different answer. On jobs, there is hope that jobs will be created, but no specific measures have been announced to create jobs. At least the finance minister should have taken off from the CEA's very competent analysis that dwarf companies or businesses do not create jobs. It's only infant companies that are growing will create jobs. She could have taken a cue from that finding and announced measures that will shift the incentives from dwarf companies to infant companies. I thought it was a great lost opportunity. But I don't find anything in the budget to address issues of farm distress or jobs. I don't know why she shied away from making or taking bold measures. Unless you announce your intention to take bold measures, where is the question of the implementing such measures during the rest of the year?
There was also, and you mentioned it as well, announcements made as far as NBFCs are concerned and the banking industry is concerned. There will be a recapitalization of public sector banks. The government has sort of given lent a sovereign guarantee to banks helping out NBFCs. Do you see this as a healthy step?
No, I don't think you've read the sentence carefully. As far as capitalization of public sector banks is concerned, the amount allotted is 70,000 crore rupees, whereas the requirement is some 2 lakh or 3 lakh crore. It's insufficient. But in the case of NBFCs, the issue is not about financially sound NBFCs. The issue is about the average NBFC which faces an acute liquidity problem. But the reference is to financially sound NBFCs. If their pooled assets are bought by banks up to 1 lakh crore, government will give a one-time, short-term, 6 months, limited credit guarantee for 10% of the 1 lakh crore. But why did you have to say in so many words? You could have said we'll give a guarantee for 10,000 crore if you buy the pooled assets of sound financial NBFCs. Now, why would a financially sound NBFC require this kind of a crutch? The issue was about average NBFCs which have a serious liquidity problem, and there's no attempt to address that at all. I'm afraid you were also taken in by the reference to NBFC, but please read the sentence carefully. It's only about financially sound NBFCs.
Mr. Chidambaram, is there a risk here of ignoring the job crisis and having that job crisis get a lot worse?
Completely. This government is in denial. Every statement put out by ministers and answers to questions in Parliament, every statement they make outside, they continue to maintain that Mudra loans create jobs, Uber creates jobs, tourism creates jobs, more people flying in airlines create jobs. Therefore, there is no job crisis in this country. I mean, this is incredible. The CMIU reports that the unemployment rate has increased. I think it's now 7.1, has gone up to 7.8 or so. It's a 45-year high. And you don't want to admit there is a jobs crisis in this country. And if you've been lulled into complacency just because even unemployed youth have voted for you in the last election, well, they may have voted for a variety of reasons, but that doesn't mean the unemployment problem has gone away. There is a real jobs crisis in this country, and I think the sooner the government acknowledges there is a jobs crisis and addresses that, the better the country will be.
You did talk about this was an opportunity to make hard decisions and to take on hard reform. What would your suggestion have been in this budget? What would you have liked to hear the finance minister announce?
This is not a question you should address to a party which is sitting in the opposition after losing an election. You don't ask this question to the BJP when it loses an election. If we had been elected, we would have implemented our manifesto. And our manifesto, chapter 1, is about jobs. So we would have implemented the whole of chapter 1 in a period of 5 years. The first thing we would have done is filled all those jobs, I think 7 lakh jobs or so, in central and state government. And we had several other measures. We said we would have allowed startups to start their business without any permission, license, etc. for 3 years and come back for an approval only after 3 years. So we did have a clear plan to create more jobs. The question must be put to the government that has been elected. What is your plan? They did not have a plan in their manifesto. They don't have a plan in the budget speech. Although I think the economic survey pointed the direction to a plan. Shift incentives to young companies, infant companies, which have the potential to grow. Offer them incentives because they are the job creators in the MSME sector. That's an important finding for which I compliment the CEA. That finding should have been acted upon boldly.
Mr. Chidambaram, I know we have limited time, but I just quickly want to ask you one more question. There has been a reiteration of this idea of, or this plan of spending 100 lakh crore rupees on infrastructure, although the only mention of it was that a committee will be set up to...
Where's the money?
Yes, to design where that money is going to come from. Do you see this as more...
But they said that in the manifesto.
Yes, go ahead.
They said that in the manifesto. No, this 100 lakh crore was mentioned in their manifesto. And we asked them then, where is the money? Now, the manifesto was released sometime in April. Now we are May, June, and July. You've had time to think about your manifesto. And again, if you say, I'll set up a committee, first tell us where is the money and how you're going to raise that money. Some thinking should have gone into it in the last 6 weeks.
All right, Mr. Chidambaram, many thanks for joining us here on Mirror Now and sharing your points of view. Congress leader, former finance minister, Mr. P.Chidambaram, on his point of view of the budget that was announced this evening.